Welcome back to the Rethink podcast, where we pause, reflect, and dive into new ways of thinking about leadership, growth, connection, and how the world goes round. I'm your host, Dr. David Zierk, and today we're going to do an interesting exploration into something deeply personal and universally profound. I'm going to talk about the origin of you. So in this episode, we're going to be talking about something that's really near and dear to all of our hearts. We're going to be talking about the origin of you. The way I look at this model is I break it down into 4 elements. And these elements, when they come together, they explain who you are, they shape how you interact with other people, and how you make sense of the world. Essentially, it's the combination of the hand you were dealt and the luck you had along the way. In my clinic, I have a very large glass board. So as we talk, I go to the board and I draw what's being discussed. And I have found that as the visual model is created, there's a deeper learning that takes place. Not only do we hear what's being said back and forth, but now the person can see what's being discussed. And oftentimes people take pictures of the board, walk away, and they come back and they say that was very useful. So I want to integrate that into our podcast and talk about these 4 elements that create the composite to explain the origin of you. So I'm going to start by drawing a figure, a common figure. It's called a rectangle. And inside this rectangle, I'm going to put a very obvious word, self. There you are. Nice and tight and contained, that's who you are. But how did you get here? How did you become you? To really explain the origin of you, it all starts with, at the top, what I call genetic gifts. So I'm writing down on my board just that, genetic gifts. These are the things that you're predisposed. It could be your hair color, your eye color, could be your height, could be your temperament, your disposition, and believe it or not, your personality. Research informs us that 30 to 50% of our personality is genetically gifted to us. Now, in our crazy little world, we can modify some of our genetic gifts, change our hair color, for instance, wear colored contacts and the like. But I'm talking about the genetic gifts that relate to relationship intelligence and give us our capacity for rethinking. This is where growth comes into play, increasing our ability for empathy, increasing our curiosity, our self-discipline or intentionality, our ability to be more flexible than ever before. Now that we have our genetic gifts down, I'm going to ask you a question to contemplate. I want you to think about, how do your genetic gifts influence your interactions with others? See what we just did? We connect the genetic gifts back to relationship intelligence. I want you to begin thinking about the gifts that you were given, what I call your intangibles, and how do they impact your ability to interact with others? Do you have a natural ability to empathize? Do you have a strong analytical mind? I'll let you fill in the blank. So that is the hand you were dealt. Now let's transition in talking about the luck you had along the way. If you will, it's the fortunes and misfortunes that are unfolded to us. On the left side of this model, I'm going to put a word in, very familiar word, and it's called upbringing. Upbringing is your family of origin. It's your extended family. It's your siblings. It is your teachers, your fellow students, your coaches, your mentors. That's your upbringing. And when we bring it back to the family of origin, those first couple of years, that's where so much information is imprinted. That's where we learn life lessons that we're not aware that we're learning during times that other people are teaching us things. Now think about that. We're learning things without being aware that we're being taught. Crossing the road, that's an obvious one, looking both ways. Who to trust, how much to trust. Do we tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth? It depends on the models that you were given. That's your upbringing. Now that we've captured the essence of our upbringing, let's shift to another element that helps explain the origin of you. And I'm writing down on the right-hand side something that is pretty near and dear to all of us. And that's our relational history. This has to do with your best friend, the birthday parties that you were invited to, the luck that you had in terms of the teachers, the quality. Maybe it was a third grade math teacher who really sparked an interest in understanding the abstractions of mathematics. Maybe it was a coach. These are the relationships that we have that are endearing. Your first kiss, your first victory, and who celebrated that along with you. So we have our genetic gifts. We have then the luck we had along the way so far with our upbringing and our relationship history. You would think that might be enough, but there's one more element, a surprising element, that really brings this model to life. Because you would think, oh my gosh, with my upbringing, I don't have much choice. It's come and gone. With my relational history, well, that's also come and gone. And maybe I had some fortune and maybe some misfortune. Am I doomed? Am I predestined to live unhappy because of what's already happened to me? And the answer is no. This is where the human mind comes into play and gives us unlimited potential. So I'm going to go to the bottom of this model and write a really great word. It's one of my favorite words. Perhaps my favorite word is dazzle, by the way. I love it when people dazzle me. But the word I wrote down is imagination, which is unlimited. Now, what happens to us in front of us, we have to process. And then we do something with it. We make sense of it. And even though what happened to us seemed to be pretty obvious, what we remember, it's spiced up using our imagination. Maybe we make mountains out of molehills. Maybe something really never did happen, but we think of it differently, such as you go to a dance and you want to ask someone to dance, but you're too shy. So you don't ask that person to dance and you go home without ever asking that person to see if there's going to be any glory. You walk away believing that you were rejected even though it never happened. That's the mind. It makes sense out of what doesn't make sense. And once it decides on something, it believes itself to be correct. So there's reality, of course, what happens before our very eyes. And then there's how we color it. And the colorization of our reality, our perceived reality, our experienced reality, our remembered and stored reality is brought to life by our imagination. So this is a tool. This is where we begin imagining us taking the next step. Imagining us really anchoring into rethinking, thinking with connection in mind, and practicing that. It uses imagination to see a future that's different from the past. There's my model. Let's going to go back very quickly because with one of these, I wanted to ask a question. The first one with genetic gifts. How do your genetic gifts influence your interactions with others? Under upbringing, what's one thing from your upbringing that you can embrace or shift to build stronger connections to move forward? You hear what I said? One thing from your upbringing that you can embrace or shift to build stronger connections moving forward. There's that moving forward piece. And when it comes to your relational history, how have your past relationships shaped your expectations and your trust levels? These are really good things to explore, not to judge. Maybe you don't trust easily. Well, you can thank your past for that to some extent. But then we can move forward. We could begin thinking, how do I improve with the ability to trust people, to tell more of a truth, to stay committed to a relationship, and to experience deeper connections? This model is the origin of you. I'm hoping understanding it this way, playing around with the questions that I presented to you for each one of these elements, always keeping in mind that your imagination is always in play, and it's a superpower. It gives you the ability to expand your self-perception. It gives you the ability to see the world differently than you're imagining it. In terms of what happened to you already in your past, you can imagine it differently. So thanks for tuning in today and allowing me to indulge you, to help you understand the origin of you. Rethink is all about thinking with connection in mind. And we do that using the tools of relationship intelligence that allows us to bring about a better opportunity to be connected with self and others by thinking with connection in mind so that we can be stronger together.